Hi, I'm Chris Frame and welcome to my channel. I've spoken a lot on this channel about the impact that the coronavirus pandemic is having on cruising and the travel industry as a whole. Throughout 2020, it has decimated the cruise industry, and cruise passengers around the world are waiting for a vaccine or an effective treatment to allow the industry to restart and for passengers to go back on cruise ships. But did you know that there are some cruise ships with passengers on board right now? That's right, cruising has actually resumed, and slowly but surely the number of cruise ships that are operating is increasing. Since early 2020, cruise lines had to deal with varying government regulations relating to the coronavirus outbreak. But by March, as the outbreak turned into a pandemic, things started to change, and cruise lines around the world entered into a voluntary pause of operations. Voyages were cancelled from cruise lines worldwide, initially for 30 days. These pauses have been extended several times, and since then I've covered off on many topics. You can check out my cruising and COVID-19 playlist in the info card or the description below. While this pause was voluntary, it was also a wise move. The coronavirus pandemic had already started to impact life on board cruise ships, with outbreaks on several cruise ships, including the Ruby Princess in Australia, the Diamond Princess in Japan, and the Artania. Now, despite what you might have heard in the media, COVID-19 outbreaks were by no means unique to the cruise industry. There were then, and have been since, numerous COVID outbreaks linked to hotels, pubs, clubs, and sporting events, as well as countless transmissions transported around the world through people travelling on aircraft. So the cruise pause was smart. It helped protect not only the health of passengers and the travelling public alike, but also the reputations of the cruise lines. But as weeks turned into months and months are dragging on, we had just seen 3 massive cruise ships beached in Turkey: Sovereign, Monarch, and Carnival Fantasy, which is a very visual sign as to the massive damage that the cruise pause is having on the industry. So it is reasonable to assume that at some point in the future, cruise lines will run out of cash reserves needed to keep over 300 cruise ships laid up around the world. And there is still no known date for the release of an effective COVID vaccine that could bring the cruising crisis to an end. So it begs the question, can cruising restart before there is an effective treatment or a vaccine for the virus? Well, the answer is it already has, but in a very limited capacity. While large ocean cruise ships are what many of us think of when we hear the word cruise, the first ships to recommence cruising were actually the river cruise ships. River cruising offers a totally different shipboard experience to ocean cruising. These ships are smaller, much smaller than ocean ships. They carry far fewer passengers, offer greater access to open air, and often allow guests to come and go as they slowly meander down the river from town to town. German river cruise line Nico Cruises was the first to recommence sailings in June 2020. The 135-metre long Nico Vision was their first ship to weigh anchor. This ship can usually carry 220 passengers, but has been sailing with a reduced capacity of 110 to allow social distancing measures to be implemented on board. Updated embarkation procedures include temperature checks and a consultation with the onboard doctor. On board the ship, special provisions have been made to ensure appropriate distancing is maintained. This includes reduced tables and dining areas, and a traffic flow system to ensure people don't bump into each other or mingle too closely, while passengers are required to wear masks when transiting corridors. June also saw Arosa Cruises recommence sailings. They're also operating river cruises. Arosa actually started its career back in the 2000s as a subsidiary of P&O, and originally used to operate ocean cruise ships as well. This included the Arosa Blue, which later became the Pacific Jewel, a 70,000-ton cruise ship that was quite popular in that market. But I digress. In June 2020, Arosa resumed cruising on the Douro and Rhine rivers. Like with Nico Cruises, they implemented social distancing measures on board and sailed with a reduced capacity. River cruising has also recommenced in France, with Cruises Europe operating voyages on the River Seine. Small ship ocean cruising has also recommenced, with the Norwegian brand Hurtigruten putting their fleet back into service in June. The Norwegian brand was the first ocean cruising line to resume services, and their voyage departed Germany, sailing north for a 2-week journey along the Norwegian coast. However, unlike ocean cruises of the past, cruising during the COVID-19 era means that there are no port calls, with the ships operating in open water due to international border restrictions. Like their river cruising counterparts, Hurtigruten have implemented strict health and safety regimes on board their ships, which are operating at reduced capacity to enable social distancing while travellers are on board. Other changes include temperature checks when boarding, rigorous health screening questionnaires, and temperature checks before entering busy areas such as dining venues, which are offering flexible dining hours to help reduce overcrowding. Additionally, buffet services have been replaced by plated service. This can actually work quite well because it reduces the number of people in contact with the food. Additionally, Hurtigruten say that all crew members undertake the WHO's COVID-19 course, while strict cleaning is undertaken. German brand Hapag-Lloyd have recommenced voyages with Europa 2, setting sail on the 31st of July. These voyages are open to residents of Germany, Austria and Switzerland, and follow the same health and safety guidelines that I've already discussed. Voyages will offer guests a deck chair view of the Norwegian and Scandinavian coasts, and will later be expanded to include a second ship, Hanseatic Inspiration. Like many of you, I enjoy cruising on large ocean ships, and in fact I was on board the Queen Mary 2 at the end of her world cruise when it was abruptly ended in Australia due to the worsening COVID-19 situation. If you're interested in following that, you can check it out in the info card above. July 2020 also saw the reintroduction of large ship ocean cruising. This is by no means to the same scale as what we saw when cruising was at its height prior to the cruise pause, but it is a significant change to the status quo of having all large ships laid up. Two cruise lines are spearheading the reintroduction of large ocean ship cruising. They are TUI and also Dream Cruises. In Europe, German operator TUI Cruises had recommenced voyages with Mein Schiff 2. A large ship of over 300 meters in length, she commenced sailing with 1,200 guests on board. This is around half of the ship's usual cruising capacity. Departing from Hamburg, this voyage sailed towards Norway, and as you might expect, the cruise included no port calls. On the other side of the world, in the waters around Taiwan, Dream Cruises has resumed voyages from Keelung with the 75,000-ton Explorer Dream. This ship actually started its career at the end of the 20th century, with Star Cruises operating as Superstar Virgo. She is a Leo-class cruise ship and is the smaller ship in Dream Cruises' fleet. The ship will sail on a short 5-day cruise, with only 1/3 of its usual passenger capacity and 500 crew, who all underwent a 3-week screening process before joining the ship. The final cruise line that I wanted to talk about was AIDA Cruises. This is a German-based cruise line and is owned by the Carnival Corporation, and it plans to resume cruising in August. The line expects to restart voyages with its 125,000 gross ton AIDAperla on the 5th of August. A large ship with the usual passenger capacity of over 4,000 guests, the line will implement various procedures to keep those on board safe. These include a digital health questionnaire, staggering the arrival and departure process, onboard health and temperature checks, as well as physical distancing measures on board the ship. AIDA expect to boost their offering with AIDA Mar and AIDA Blue, both entering service later in August. Like all of the other ocean cruise lines, these voyages will not include any port calls. Just a quick reminder that all of the cruise lines that I've mentioned in this video have detailed information about their health and safety procedures on their websites. So if you're interested in more details, I recommend that you check those out. I'll link them in the description below. With cruising recommencing in select areas of the world, some people now have an opportunity to enjoy the relaxation of an ocean voyage or a river cruise. However, for the vast majority of cruise lines, resumption of full-time cruising is quite some way off. Major shipping lines have repeatedly pushed back planned start dates, with most now not planning to recommence voyages until sometime between October and December 2020. Additionally, many nations are not willing to allow cruise holidays to commence in their ports or waters, with reports suggesting that cruising and the normalizing of travel in general may not take place until an effective vaccine is produced and available to travelers worldwide. But despite most of the major cruise lines not planning to restart anytime soon, all eyes are on the cruise lines that have restarted to see if these procedures and plans will actually pay off. So what do you think about the resumption of cruising during the COVID-19 pandemic? Would you feel comfortable to take a cruise given all of the additional safety procedures that have been implemented by those lines that have re-established cruising? Or are you more likely to wait until there's a treatment or a vaccine available before you travel again? Let me know in the comments below. Now, there are a huge number of different opinions on this topic, so let's try and keep the comment section friendly and courteous, if that's even possible. I mean, the comment section blowing up is good for engagement. If you found the video interesting, don't forget to give it a like. And if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. If you're interested in what's going on in the cruising industry, check out my cruising news playlist. Or if you're more interested in maritime history, check out my maritime history playlist. Thanks again for watching, and when it is safe for all of us to cruise again, I hope to see you on board.